In this series from What's Going On with Shipping, we look at the World Wars, Episode 2, What Are the Plans? I am your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So many of you know me as the host of What's Going On with Shipping, where we talk about all that's going on in global shipping, and there is a shipload of stuff going on in global shipping. However, my day job is as a professor at Campbell University, and I tend to think that college professors get a bad rap every now and then. You know, a lot of people are kind of really dogging against a college education, which I understand. I understand it's really expensive and all the elements of it. But I want to give you the behind the scenes of a college course. Specifically, this course I'm teaching this semester, a new one here at Campbell University, on the world at wars. These are the conflict from 1898 to 1949, with a focus on the two world wars. Episode 1 was talking about World War Zero, which was the events leading up to the First World War. This episode looks at specifically the outbreak of World War I. And to understand wars, you need to know the 3 C's. You need to understand cause, you need to understand the conflict, and you need to understand the consequences. Some professors will teach one of those, the conflict. They'll get all in the military, but they won't look at cause and consequences. Others will look at the cause and consequences and ditch on the military because they don't want to talk about military stuff. I think it's really important to talk about all 3 of them. Now, my students are getting discussions and lectures in class, but they also have outside reading. And for that, we're using 2 sources, using Hugh Strachan's book, The First World War, which I think is an excellent book. There's a lot of First World War books out there, but I like this one. It's got some meat to it. 10 chapters, extremely well done. The other one is an accompanying series that goes with that, which is the First World War series. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. Some students like the chapters out of the book. Some like the videos. Some like both. And I think it's good to have both of those available to them. The other thing I like to use is in class is some backdrops on the big video on images. So this is from a series entitled World War I from Epic History. Epic History, a great site. Strongly recommend it. They did a series of videos on World War I that they've compiled into one big video on World War I, over an hour. They did it by year. And one of the things they focus on here is the opening plans for the First World War. For example, the Schlieffen Plan, the German plan to go through Belgium, attack France, and then shift over to deal with the Russians. And one of the first things we talk about in my class is the war aims and mobilization of the armies for the First World War. We kind of Guns of August it, where we look at that, and I'll have my students divide up into different nations, and they talk about what their ambitions are, what their goals are, what they're setting out to do, and how they're going to do that. And I think that's a great way. Each of them takes a nation. You can look at the big 6 or 7 nations, divide them up, have a great discussion, and talk about it. And every country has its own kind of ambitions, goals. But one of the big themes that comes across is the idea that everyone's war plan is the same. Attack, 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 attack. That's the theme of the First World War. Everybody is on the offensive because they all believe the offensive is key. No one quite yet understands that defense is the way to go in World War I. They haven't been proven that yet. And so what you have is this idea of an attack. Now, how do you convey to the students the scale of the attacks and what that means? So one of my backgrounds was I got an opportunity to be a fellow at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And one of the things that taught me was the value of a staff ride. A staff ride is taking students to a battlefield. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the means or capabilities to load my students up in a plane and fly them to the battlefield in northern France. However, we have the next best thing. So how do you go about teaching the Schlieffen Plan in some details that students will understand? Now, understand, you can throw up maps and PowerPoints and all day, and that's a good way to educate students. So we're using a source here. It's from the U.S. Military Academy, their war atlases. And their atlases, which are all online, you can download them, are great because you get these type of maps right here, which show you the Schlieffen Plan in operation. What I like to do, however, is get the students involved. How do you get the students involved? Well, you go from a map like that to a map like this, where we lay out exactly everything here for them, including even the counters, so that we can basically move armies on the board. Here we have the entire German army all laid out before us. You can see all the way from the First Army, von Kluck, all the way down here to the 7th Army. And we even got our little Helmut von Moltke right here to command. Same thing for the French Army. We have the French Army laid out, including replacement generals when they come in from the 5th Army down here, all the way, from the First Army down here, all the way up to the 5th Army. We've got the Belgians over there. We've got the British Expeditionary Force landing on the coast. And we have General Joffre right here sitting at his headquarters in Paris. What this allows us to do then is to feel the entire army right here. What I like to do is give the students a certain role. For example, you command the right wing of the German army, or you command a specific army, and you track it. And then what we do on the map behind us is update the map as the battle moves. And it's up to the student then to move the armies on the field and discuss what's going on. Now, I should note, one of the first things I have to do with students is teach them how to read a map. They have no idea, so they don't quite understand what the water is, what the flat land is, what is the mountain area. So we're continually doing that with them. But what you find out is they get kind of involved in this. Here we move to Battle of the Marne, where the troops were up on the Somme. They're in a position where they're retreating. It's the end of August, early September. We've got the introduction of a couple of new armies, the 6th Army from Paris, the 9th Army under Foch, change of command of several of the armies. We're moving, and then we play it out right here on our board so that you can see the full movement right here. You can see how the armies have moved in here, that we've moved in along. We've got the Battle of the Frontiers being waged right here. We've got the battle in front of Verdun being waged, and then the large hook motion right here coming in. Joffre is here. The 6th Army is preparing to kind of come out here and do battle. We've got the 9th Army coming in under Foch and the whole movement here. And what we'll do is have the students move the pieces on the battlefield so they get a little bit of a feel for how the battle unfolds. And to me, you begin to understand battles more by actually taking a look at them. I think it's really important for this. In this class specifically, what we're going to do this semester is we're not just looking at the Battle of France here in 1914. We're going to look at the Battle of France in 1918. We're going to look at the Spring Offensive and how that unfolds. We will fast forward to 1940, the German Blitzkrieg attack. We'll take a look at how the Germans were able to come through this area so quickly the next time around. So they're going to be familiar with this battle, so that when we talk about the Ardennes up here, and then the move over here to the coastline, to Abbeville, to Dunkirk, they will know about those, they'll understand them. And then we'll look at the Allied invasion in 1944, and we even put in context the Battle of the Bulge at Bastogne here, which is actually a pretty small in terms of size on the map, very small in scale. But you understand why the Germans do it, because they were able to penetrate through in the past. I think this is an extremely fun way to do it. Doesn't take a lot. Downloaded this map from the website. I had my library here at the university, which prints posters for scientific elements, printed for me. They laminated it for me. And then the cards were the easiest things to do. These are just PowerPoints, and I just print them down at a smaller level for presentation, do it on hard stock, flip them over on each side, and you're off and running. It's all imagination, whatever you want to do to be able to teach. And the students love this, although I do have one professor who argues that I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. This is not Dungeons and Dragons. This is a combat simulation, but it teaches students about elements of war and conflict and society that I think is really important, so that when we talk about what was the plan for the Allies, for the Central Powers at the beginning of World War I, they actually see it on the drawing board, and then they see it executed. Hope you enjoyed it. So I hope that gave you a good idea how I like to get kind of down into the weeds in the class. It's a lot of fun. We do that with the Schlieffen Plan. We're going to do it with the Spring Offensive of 1918. We'll do it with the German assault in 1940. We'll do it with the Allied landings in 44. And we'll do it with the Battle of the Bulge in 45. Now, I know what some people are going to say, Sal, you're limiting yourself. What about the bigger opera? What about the Eastern Front? We're going to talk about the Eastern Front. We're going to talk about all the different areas where the war is fought. But to get down into granular details, I think that's a good one. So, for example, on the naval side, which we'll feature on here, we're going to talk about two specific battles, one in World War One, one in World War Two. And again, I can't go into every naval battle, but I think it's really important that if you teach students how to dissect key elements of history, they can go back in and dissect everything. It's very much the process that sciences and math uses. No one teaches you every iteration of a math multiplication table. Once you get it, you understand it. That's kind of the skills you need for history. You need to be able to understand it. And one of the things I hope the students get out of this, and especially they did out of this most recent discussion, was where were the faults in the Schlieffen Plan. And what we're getting ready to talk about next is how do you deal with the middle part of World War One, where you've just had the big offensives of 1916. You've had the Battle of Verdun, you've had the Battle of the Somme, you had the Brusilov offensive, you've brought Italy and Romania into the war has expanded. At what point do you sit there and say, geez, maybe we should stop fighting and we should have a peace conference? And what my students are going to do is pick a nation and come in with either the pro, let's keep the war going, and the con, let's end this war, how do we sell this war, and talk about why is it in the winter of 1916, 1917, the war doesn't end. And my students will pick a nation, they'll come in, and we will discuss it, and it's going to be a great discussion. I look forward to it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. And hey, if you want to join in the fun here, hey, just come to Campbell University. Come on in, enroll, and come on down and take classes with Dr. Sal. That's right, I'm a doctor. So in case you ever need a medical emergency, don't call me. I'm the wrong doctor. This is the wrong doctor. But I am a doctor. Until our next episode, this is Sal, signing off.